Right.
Yo, San Jose, Oaxaca, Mexico, Josh.
Yeah.
By far the most interesting person that I ever met. This guy is spitting valuable shit all the time. I don't know, man. He's just a waterfall of words, man. And I enjoy listening to him. And
I appreciate this guy's open mind for real, because most people can't tolerate more than 20 seconds.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, really, just like in personal conversations, I can see the eyes glaze over and they move on somewhere else.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, they don't want to talk about the real stuff. It's kind of scary.
What is the real stuff?
The love that they are and how they're running away from it.
Okay, maybe just to introduce you a little bit more. You are a writer, an author. You are writing a book. It's called Becoming a Superhero by
Correct.
Ditching the Costume.
Ditch the costume.
And after 10 minutes conversation, just after 10 minutes, I got to know you. You just sent me this book.
Right.
And I'm fucking grateful for that. Thanks
Of course,
for that.
man. No, that's what I plan to do with it all together, is because I'm not going to sell truth. It would just make it a lie.
What is true for you?
Truth is the thing that reconciles soundly between the feelings and the thoughts of a person. Truth is the path upon which you are, that feels right and thinks through soundly, that makes sense and makes you feel good about it.
Okay, Becoming a Superhero by Ditching the Costume. Why did you write this book? What was the main motive?
I mean, literally, the title I had earlier for the same book would have been Turning Life Inside Out. Not turning, but just Life Inside Out.
Okay.
And but this is really, we're turning the human inside out, right? By putting the costume, well, maybe on the inside or maybe away in the closet somewhere. But I realized I tried a lot of stuff. I discovered this technology I was telling you about, and I experimented with it. I knew that if I built it, it would have an effect of elevating the consciousness, almost like a hack of the consciousness. But there's some unforeseeable effects of that if people are still resistant of, receiving themselves. And so I figured there is, in fact, an event coming up of one type or another. It's going to either be an extinction or an evolution of humanity. It's required. For the universe to continue, the plague known as humanity must be brought to an end. But there are two ways of doing this, and I happen to ascribe to the latter. The first one is an extinction event. This has happened throughout history. It's not fucking uncommon. But there's another way, and that is by evolving a human into something no longer recognizable as a human, as an engine of destruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
By evolving the human into something more that is polar inverse, right? A level of creative beauty and expressive imagination that actually surpasses in force that of their destruction, because their destruction is done competitively, but their creation will be done cooperatively. So that's that.
Man. Fuck.
Here, another thought on that. Because each human being is literally a power center for the universe. The crystal radio that Nikola Tesla invented, maybe somebody else started and he finished, but he was involved. And I think he probably invented the whole thing. They just credited somebody else. But it literally had no internal power source and was a crystal wrapped in a wire. When it received transmission from a central broadcast tower, it both played it and repeated it with 50% more energy than it came in with. So it transmitted 150% of what it received. And the most powerful broadcast of the crystal radio was in 1916, the coronation of the Queen of England. Who somehow I think is still alive. That's fucking crazy. Is it the same one?
I don't know. I don't think
she
so.
doesn't die, son. Anyway, but that is the human being. Literally, we receive input of energy from broadcast source, not just one though, from four of them: the earth, the water, the wind, and the fire, the sun, the earth. Is this
don't worry,
right.
don't worry.
And the human being is literally shit. I kind of lost my spot there when that thing happened. All right, but that's it, more or less. Oh, the human being's regulating, empowering this whole experience. The creation of their artistic expression is aspects and facets of the divine consciousness. And by being here to do that freely and with encouragement to do so and to discover and express their beauty, it creates a far more beautiful experience. Sure, we could go back to having a couple humans, but that'd be kind of fucking boring if you ask me. You know what I mean? Like, it's far better to turn the humans into something more that they enjoy being, for Christ's sake, and they don't have to destroy the universe or be destroyed themselves. We have more power. We have billions of us, billions and billions, billions and billions. And if you consider the extra dimensional, because all the consciousnesses that have ever existed in a body are still going on somewhere, they might just not be here. When we bring them all back to one place, we have 100 billion over time, 100 billion supercomputers called human brains that are the only imaginative creative source in the universe. We want as many of them as we can get, but they got to be working right.
How, like, I mean, it's obvious that you're thinking a lot.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. How did you acquire that mindset? Why are you thinking like that? Like, how come?
There's a song I love. I wish we could like put it in the track here. I have to turn down this guy. His name's Decca. He's a rapper, but it's amazing. And he says, basically, there's a part of the song at the end that says, "There's a point came in my life today." What do you say? Took stock of my life and the things pertaining to it. And the mistakes that I'd made. And I took full responsibility for all of it. And I realized that the life that I was living was not producing the love that I needed to be able to share with the people I cared about the most, especially my children. And that continuing on the path that I was watching other older people on, this demonstrating the same failure and lack of love, would be nothing short of irresponsible, insane, and fucking unacceptable. There was just too much at stake. So I one day just said, you know what, I've done a good job of pretending I know everything, and it seems to have led exactly nowhere that I want to be. So I just was in my bed. Everything was falling apart. I knew it. I wasn't admitting it. I was pretending it was still all right. I just graduated from law school, owned a home in Houston, Texas, had a family, 4 daughters. I mean, just did the whole American dream thing going on. But I knew it was done. I knew it was a fucking nightmare. And I just cried out to the universe, man. I was like, listen, everything I've come to believe or think I believe is bullshit, but something's true. So you're going to have to show me what it is. And really quick, the universe grabbed me. I'll never forget the first thing. The first thing slapped me upside the head because I was really in the fundamentalist hardcore Christianity thing. And there's this tree, the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Everyone wants to call it the fruit, forbidden fruit, and then the tree of knowledge, tree or whatever. But I'm like, the first thought I remember really having in conversation with myself was direct from the universe. The tree had a name. I'm like, well, what? I'm like, I knew it was important, so I went to look it up. What's the name of that fucking tree again? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the fruit? And if the tree had a fruit, what's the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil? There's only one more fucking thing you can use knowledge of good and evil to do, and that's judge the shit out of things. So this fruit of the knowledge of good and evil is literally the judgment thing. And then if you watch what unfolds next, they all get all fucking weird. And they're, oh, I'm naked. I need some clothes. Well, hold on. Who told you were naked? Apparently you did and said, I'm not good because I'm naked. So there comes the judgment in operation. So that was literally like one of the first steps that led me to understanding. Like I'd gone everywhere other people said to go in inversion and in positive, like the opposite of what they said, and then exactly where they said to go. And in both places, I found absolutely nothing. So there's only one place left, and that was in the absence of judgment, the freedom in the expression and pursuit of desires, and the full-on, absolute, to the death trust of myself. Because I guarantee you, on this planet, the only person you can trust fully to always have your best interest in mind is you. And you should never even expect or ask another person to sacrifice their best interest for you. Why would you? You got you to do that.
And what was your biggest desire then to express yourself?
It was, honestly, man, it was to leave my wife and go find real love, go find something of meaning. It was empty and hollow. And it was literally, at the time, it was leave my wife and go find the woman that I could connect to in a way that I remembered being passionate and having life, because the marriage was never, ever that. And it was the most, it was such a hard thing for me. That was never what it was I was pursuing. What I was really pursuing was the love for myself that I needed to have to be able to share it with the people that were demanding it, my children. But the way it looks at first to a person that's looking for it is that it's in somebody else, right? It's what the world teaches you, and it's what the people chase after. So I did find it. And the first chick I was with, what triggered the Kundalini awakening, I'm madly in love with that chick. We That's what totally changed my entire outlook, life perspective on myself. More or less, learning to unconditionally love her. It turned upon me because I got rid of the hypocrisy, then the self-deprecation, and then it just turned into romantic feelings for myself. But it's always going to be, but I still had this thing like, all right, I can leave the home, but I'll never be out of my children's lives. That was not allowed either.
Then we can quit if it's
no,
too
but
personal.
I'm good. I mean, I want my children to see this. To be honest with you, someday.
Okay.
I do.
If you're sure,
I'm positive.
we can continue.
And it's fine. I want people to understand that there's it's not a suffering point. I fucking motherfucking dragon shooters, calm down for a minute. Look, it's like this though. The tears, those are a little bit of water I got on me from the river of life, bud. You know.
Okay, if you say so, we continue.
Yeah, we're
man.
good. I'm good.
We continue. I mean, I've read a little bit, like through your book.
Yeah.
A little bit the first pages, and then just going through it, and the last words as well.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I read it that you dedicated this book to your daughters, right?
I did. I had to, man. I've been trying to write this book since I was like 7 years old, probably. But at first I didn't have anything to write, even though I was a writer then. I didn't have any experiences of life to write. And then later on, I started trying to write about bullshit, like the Christian bullshit that people didn't have nothing to write about then. Then I started learning real stuff, but the way that it went down and the fucking amazingly atrocious things that were done to my children and myself through the process, it inspired me with a fair amount of bitterness and resentment. And so when I'd undertake to write the book before communicating the things that were true, I would package them in a fuck you wrapper. And I realized that wasn't probably going to have the desired effect either. Somewhere I kept attempting to write that book, but it would always just not be cohesive. It would just fall apart, rightly so. And it really took me in focusing on the fact that I'm the only people that the snarky ego part of myself wants to communicate this to is my daughters. So by filtering the truth coming from my ego, which would be snarky, as if I'm speaking directly to my children, they're innocent of all this. They're victims. So it allowed me to write it in a way that wouldn't offend, but would illuminate. You know?
If your children would read this book, what do you think would they think afterwards?
I'll just leave that for them, but I know their hearts are pure now because our DNA is the same and I've cleaned mine up, so that'll be all right. I mean, they're going to realize at one point, someday is going to come when they realize that they've been literally thinking that the darkness is the light and loving it while calling the light darkness and insane and thinking that it's crazy. But like you and the people who are willing to even listen at all realize pretty quickly, I kind of know what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's fucking logical. It makes sense. It's more reasonable than anything they're doing and calling sane, while at the same time calling me crazy. So when they actually, and my children are very intelligent and now the DNA communicates every lesson we learn and teach ourselves to those that have our same DNA up and down. And it's a quantum thing. And the only way that my children, I'm confident and convinced that the reason grass is always greener on the other side, where the body is, the spirit can't be. In this reality, it's just the way it is. So if I had been there with them, I wouldn't have been there at all, right? I would have been there in a body only that was full of piss and vinegar and mean as hell most of the time. But by being gone, I know for a fact my spirit and my heart are constantly with them. And they're allowed to imagine the truth of it, which I heard somebody told me once. Like, they wanted me to actually sit down with my children before I left for Mexico and explain to them something almost to this exact effect. This lawyer said this: a lot of children like to imagine that when their dads disappear, they're saving the world or something. They're going to be a superhero. You should probably sit down with them and tell them that that's not what you're doing, so they don't have any misconceptions. I'm like, you don't have a clue, do you, bitch? But it's fucking hilarious. Like, they're gonna literally be able to see some completely different. They're able to imagine right now the truth of it, right? In their heart somewhere, they know, even though they're being told something else, that daddy is out doing something for them. Cowards don't wait for the danger to reach their front door. They go to the front lines and make sure it never reaches it. They don't even want the danger to be seen by those they love, to be honest. And some dangers move so fast you can't see it before it's over. It's over before you see it. And when we talk about the destruction of the planet coming up here pretty quick, if we don't change a course radically, it's not something, I mean, we've been seeing it for a long time and nobody's really doing a motherfucking thing about it. You know what I mean? It just gets worse and worse and people can just get more and more ignorant or real. But my daughters are going to know it is what it is. I've told them they are the princesses of the new world. And they will not, I don't think, ever experience in this world that vacancy within themselves, because I'm confident that as their father, loving them truly, that hole isn't being created. That hole is created by little girls having a father in the home that acts all the time like he is not in love with them, right? Like they are not important or they're in their way, right? Because he doesn't, I know how it feels. He doesn't have it. There's nothing else he can do. But then that daughter, that child is literally can't even pretend or imagine daddy really loves me, right? Because he's right there acting otherwise every day. You know what I mean? Even though he does inside, it doesn't come out. And so the feeling, like there's this conflict, there's this, they know they know the love's there, they feel some of it, but there's also this lack of acceptance, because what I realized years later is a father will always relate to his children through the parts of himself he doesn't accept. The parts he's told himself he had to kill and put away and stop being. So then he'll punish his kids for being fearless, for being imaginative, for not caring about other people's opinions. All the things he's made himself give up and put away. And then therefore that child will go out and look for acceptance of those parts of themselves in the world, in places it'll never be found, okay? But even though this process is really fucking amazingly excruciating, I'm pretty sure it's the only way to have ever arrived at the ability to truly love my children. Because if I hadn't done that, I would still be sitting there a miserable asshole, just like my ex-father-in-law and my own dad are to my children. I watched it.
So, you escaped, more or less, this life that you led to improve yourself as well, right? To get to know yourself, to be in love with yourself in order to love genuinely back. Or
correct. I mean, they are part of me, and if there's any part of me I do not love, it will result in a failure of love for them, right? But more, I guess, poignantly, the deconstruction of the life had to do with the building on a faulty foundation. I mean, everything I had constructed was built on the fear of not having it. And so to get it back into order, it literally all had to be removed. The entire motherfucking thing. The foundation along with everything else. There's no other option. There's no other option. Because if you're losing something, you can't love it. And if you're afraid of losing your life, you're never going to enjoy it. For real. It's just you have to strip down every little piece of that rotten foundation to get a firm footing. You got to figure out, the problem is the fuckers built the house somewhere. They're not even sure where it is. But from there, we're trying to get somewhere else. One of the prerequisites of knowing where you're going and how to get there is knowing where the fuck you're at. But most people, god damn, most people start out without a clue of where they're at or much of an idea where they want to go, but they still keep moving around as if they're going somewhere.
This sound just got me out of the concept. Wait
for another one, it'll come.
What the fuck?
I don't know, man. That sounds like a stick of dynamite, though, in the air.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
We're talking about the finding and loving of a self, though.
Yeah, but in general, because you seem to be...
One more.
How did you know that?
I heard the...
Okay.
It's a bottle rocket.
Okay, fair enough. You seem to be like impure with yourself. You seem to have a clue or to be in control about yourself.
Always.
About the things that are going in your mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I guess you're a completely different person right now than you were before.
Absolutely.
6 years before or something when you started
That's
to write.
correct. Absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. So is there gonna be a point in your life when you're gonna return to the US, to Michigan, to see your daughters, to be with your daughters?
Absolutely, but only after the power structure of Babylon, which is what that country represents, has been dismantled, and I can return for my children the right way without the compromise and sacrifice of myself. My ex-wife alleged I used some drugs. I get to court to fucking talk about this, ready for a drug test, when I'm going to test positive for nothing. These motherfuckers, they know, now you need a mental health evaluation and take any recommended medications. And I'm like, you crazy son of a bitch. I'm the only normal motherfucker in this room. Probably the state, maybe the country. So, listen, I'm not going to do that. There's no way, but I will leave, figure out how to kill your power that you're using to destroy my children, and I'll come back and get them. So I'll go back when it's no longer. Trump's really making America great again. America's the continent, bud. And America was only great when there was no United States government. So to make America great again, he's shutting down the government for 30 days to build a wall, making a joke out of the power structure for fucking 3 years. He's got over 2,000 sealed indictments around the world against the rich and the powerful, who would be his friends. But he's doing something we don't know about. I think he's just using the people with hate. But when it all changes, I will absolutely be with my children. We'll spend the rest of the time together. You know what they're going to do real soon? Run the hell away from their mother. Because you wouldn't believe. I'm just going to tell you this because it's just an example of this bitterness thing gone awry. For the first year of our alienation, I made special gifts for my children. I recorded albums. I play the piano, and I sing a little bit. I recorded albums for 2 of them. I wrote a book for one. I wrote a book and an installment of a book for another 2 of them. The one that would be called probably the Daddy's Girl, the most favorite. I'm her favorite, right? Even after everything, she didn't even get told about the one I made for her until 2 years later, when their mother had gotten remarried and let them call me to like rub it in my face or something. And I asked her if she'd gotten that gift. And she's like, no, I didn't even think you made me one. Fucking amazingly horrific. It's crazy. This is where bitterness, it's just, I don't understand it, man. I don't even know how I got off on that little tangent, but don't do the bitterness thing. Don't use your fucking children as weapons, for Christ's sake. If a mother loves her child, she'll never teach them to hate their father, because he's half of them. If you teach your child to hate their father, it's just a part of them they're not going to like. And why the fuck would you do that? Anyway.
Whoa. Didn't expect this.
I mean, it's amazingly awful.
But, like, for real, since you're talking to me...
Did I turn it off and on accidentally?
Did you?
Is that still working? Yeah, we're good. Sorry. All right, what now?
Talk something?
Yeah, I think I'm working out. There we go.
Yeah, it works. I mean, still, the way you're talking to me like that, you're getting pretty emotional and everything, you know?
Of course. I'll always will, because it's stepping into their suffering, I think. I can handle it myself. When I choose to shut it off, it's gone. But whenever I choose to engage it, I view it as like I'm stepping into their pain some to help them process it.
But you're telling me that you're gonna go back if the state in general is going to change and everything.
The world isn't. It's not an if; it's a when, and I guarantee it's going to happen really soon. Because I just wrote a book about how, why, when, where, and what to do to make it happen. So as soon as that's released and people get to the part with the science, and they're like, "Oh my God, he actually knows about that too," and they start paying attention. It's elementary level science. It's like non-moving pieces. It's just the simplest shit you can imagine. That ends the petroleum industry. It comes with a new cryptocurrency that rebalances the entire global economy. And it all changes. And at that point, once the book is published and there's recognition that I know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I'm obviously not going to take your fucking poison medications because I'm normal, then I'll go back, because they're not going to try to make me take the poison medications to see my children. You know what I mean? They'll have gotten the point that they're crazy. I'm not. So fucking listen. But I will not compromise myself. I left to become authentic. The very last fucking thing I would ever do is return by lying and saying I'm fucking crazy. I'll not go back to my children in the same condition I left. It would be as if we separated for no reason at all. They put me between the biggest rock you can imagine and the hardest place they could find. If it hadn't all been for them, I would have ran back with my tail between my legs. But I realized that if I did that, nothing would have actually been accomplished except some damage to them and no change to their future. But it's really weird. Like there's this, the story of the Bible talks about the overcoming of instinct. The greatest thing, or the greatest love is this: a man would lay down his life for his friends. But you know what I'm finding this time? I'm pretty sure that our evolution is always one of merging instinctual programs, and this time, it just seems to be the taking back up of your life from those you love the most, in order to share it with them. The parental instinct is the only thing that supersedes the instinct of survival. And I'll be damned if that wasn't the thing that had to be overcome in order to actually deliver the goods that the parental instinct demands. Parental instinct, part of it demands this expression of love and the imparting of life. But the other part of it is you can't do it until you've released and let go of the attachment to the objects of your love. Otherwise, they're just objects of fear. We put ourselves in a fucking maze here, but it's a house of mirrors with a little inversion going on.
Man, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to ask, what to ask, because I got the feeling that I'm getting too much personal.
No,
too
but
much.
It's never. No. I'm an open book. I don't have any hidden parts, man. I practice what I preach, and I am the change that I wish to see in the world. If people just get real and don't hide parts of themselves, they'll realize that everybody will actually love the parts of them that they're hiding. And even if nobody else does, if you can do it for yourself, it doesn't matter. I love my ability to express my emotions publicly.
Okay,
It used to scare me. It used to make me feel insecure and vulnerable. I love it now because it makes me feel like a fucking badass because I just fucking suffered all this shit and I can shed a tear about it sometimes.
So you can understand that I'm now like a little bit, I don't know what is that. I'm like in a confused state right now.
Okay.
We're fuck. Like doesn't matter.
Whatever.
We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead.
We're
Maybe because the person you're right now.
Yeah.
Or because you told about yourself that you didn't.
Oh, let me jump on. All right. So so a human body is born, and then at 33 years of age, it downloads its spirit programming. This is why the midlife crisis thing. 33 years old.
Why exactly 33? Like
I'm not 100% sure, but that's the template. That's when it happens. That's why at 33, the midlife crisis, the phenomena of widespread, the people just fucking fall apart at 33 is because the spirit downloaded, common sense came with it, and they realized, my God, I completely fucked up my life. But they're too afraid of admitting it because they think that it actually is true that they fucked up their life. No, they didn't. They just did something else for a while. You know what I mean? It's not a problem. It's not wasted. The only time it starts being a waste is when you keep doing the broken shit knowing it ain't going to go anywhere better. Then it starts to be wasted. But before that, it's just what you did, right? But at 33, the human downloads its spirit, and the spirit is literally like the prodigal son in the Bible. The Bible is very clear. Who knows where these Christians came up with shit? Jesus was the prodigal son. He was the one telling the story. There was a father and a religious, hypocritical older brother, and then there was the prodigal son. Which one was Jesus? Well, he was the prodigal son, motherfucker. You don't gain wisdom by being a fucking jackass, sitting around the house judging people. You know what I mean? He was wise. He did stuff. Probably looked a lot like what I've done, for Christ's sake. We've come to the same it looks a lot like what anyone who's achieved real spiritual enlightenment understanding has done, because the truth is always the same path. It looks different for everybody, but it's always an uncovering of the same things, because the truth is the truth. And it was crazy, man. It was the day my fourth daughter. Don't get this. My daughter's names is Camila, Evelina, Gabriella, and Esri Eloise. Now, Camila means perfection, perfect word, and perfection is a standard of death because nothing can live up to it. When perfect exists, everything else is dead. And literally, like when she was born, I died like from being able to feel. I mean, I just was. It was. She always got the very worst of me because I felt completely unequipped, and I was really. And then there's Evelina. That's messenger or word of life. Okay, word of life. She was the first daughter I actually had a connection to. Like my oldest daughter, the connections come later. I feel connected to her now, even though we're separated. But my second daughter, Evelina, she was the first one I really felt like a hope for being able to share that love. And then there's Gabriella, and she was the one I really first bonded with. This Gabriella is the archangel of grace and mercy, right? And she was the first one. Like we went to bed, I put her to get bed together every night for pretty much her first year of life, and we bonded really quite well. And love that little girl. And then Ezriel, Ezriel Louise, I love you, baby. Archangel Ezriel, the messenger of death and resurrection. The day she was born was also the day I graduated from law school. It was also the day I knew everything I had been doing was bullshit. It was bullshit. And my whole life was over. It's like this whole crazy shit. It's weird. But I had to, it's all for them, everything I've done. And in the meantime, I've connected with this eternal spirit that's literally doing the same fucking thing I'm doing for my 4 daughters, for the entirety of the human population, because it's the same children, right? What I'm doing for my daughter's future is the Spirit is doing through me for humanity's future, and that's how I guarantee you we win. We have the endorsement of the only one that matters. And it's just like evolutionary efficiency, right? Like everything trends toward the simplicity of operation. It is not simple to run an insane planet. It takes a lot of effort. You know what I mean?
That's right, though.
Huh?
That's right, though.
Yeah. So we're going to be simplifying it. There's no way around it. Now, look, most people, back to a little bit of polarity, most people have the fear of one of their polarities or the other. They either fear God or they fear the devil, right? That's what they call them. I mean, they're just energies, one positive, one negative. But they have a fear of one or the other, and they're always running away from one and chasing after the other.
Wait.
All right.
Espera, disculpa. ¿Pueden ir a este lado porque estamos grabando algo? Sería muy bien si pueden ir a este lado. Solo 20 minutos, algo como así. Muchas gracias.
Right, so they have the fear of one polarity or the other. So they're running away from something all the time and chasing after another. That's why marketing philosophy works really well by preying upon a fear of loss or a hope of gain, right? I mean, I was in marketing. I used it very successfully to sell a lot of shit that was garbage for a lot of money that I didn't really deserve. Right? I took it anyway. But that's what people do all over the world. It's bullyism. But what I've accomplished and what everyone can accomplish when they get inside themselves and love the shit out of both parts of themselves, converting the ego from this critic that's always, oh my God, I'm afraid of this. Don't do that. It's called living, and living is the #1 cause of death, don't you know? Right? So you got to fucking tune in. Like after a while, I'd be doing the craziest shit. You wouldn't believe it. It's a period of time. This is a few years ago, and then the universe realized I was serious about not trading my life for money anymore.
How do you mean? Like,
well, but I went through a period where I literally was. I was a fucking professional high-end camera thief, retail stores. I would go into stores and take fucking high-end display cameras and sell. I had just no problems. Every gate was always open for me, and the universe paved the way. Never had a single problem. But the part of me that was like, oh my, what are you gonna do that? Or you want to do what? I'm like, just do it. All right. But after a while, the part of me that was resistant became the suggester sometimes. Hey, what do we do now? Why don't we go do this? You crazy motherfucker. All right.
But what sorry. What was this turning point?
It was when I had there were a few of them. When I had first graduated from law school, I tried for literally 12 months straight, 18 hours a day, resume after resume, identity after identity that I tailored together with pretty good words because I'm rather remarkable with them. To no avail whatsoever. I got a couple interviews, not a single fucking job offer. I'm talking about 18 hours a day. And I'm like, eventually, I kept telling my wife, like my ex-wife, giving her status up, trying to appease people's insecurities, right? Like, oh, it looks good, promising. I just shut up after a while because I'm like, ain't nothing happening. So I'm going to speak when I have something to say, you know? And so she started assuming like I wasn't doing anything. I was doing the same amount of everything I was. I just wasn't talking about the dumb shit. I was chose to speak and communicate with her about the realizations of life and expansive consciousness that I was having at the same time. But when I left, and finally one night came, she came out to my car. I was in there just chain smoking like I had been, just churning this problem, which was I have to leave, but I don't want to. That was the problem. I'd been burning for a year. I'm like, I have to leave, but I don't want to. And she come out to the door, and she's in my car, and she's like, you need to get, if you're not, just freaking out, like, if you're not going to go and dig ditches for minimum wage with this family friend of ours, you can just leave. I'm like, bye. I drove away. I mean, it was my opening. She had never given me one reason to leave at all. She'd never done anything that I could fucking even find fault with. I never lied. Never, not a one thing. Amazingly difficult to find a reason to leave. Actually, what was one of the reasons it was so fucking hard? There was no problems. There was no fucking. She was just the most normal person according to the world you can find. And she steals children, eats their souls, but whatever. Whatever, right? But see. Then, so I leave and I meet up with Ashley, this chick I was with earlier. This one I had the Kundalini awakening with. We were together in our teens for brief, just really passing period. But as soon as we met, like the next day, I go into this fucking interview. I file for this pharmaceutical company. I put in a resume for part-time position. If I can call me in there, hire me on the spot. 'Cause it's a bunch of women, and I seem to get on well with women. And these motherfuckers literally gave me the top end of my asking range, $30 an hour. Then moved me up to full time really quickly after that, and then fired me for no reason 6 months later. But that 6 months gave me a really good. I mean, I made quite a bit of money during that time. I was eligible for unemployment, and a lot of, like, I realized I wasn't going to do this. Like, fuck pharmaceuticals. I was starting to sell my soul to the whole fucking thing, thinking about getting another degree in law for pharmaceuticals. Anyway, when that job ended, when that fucking thing ended, I'm like, that's when the whole process of taking back my mind began, because the human doesn't actually have control over its mind until it gets control over its feelings. How you feel about yourself during what's happening directly relates to what you choose to do about what's happening. When you are feeling fucked up, you will do fucked up shit. When you're feeling good, you will do good shit, right? I mean, it's pretty common sense, but I had to tell myself, even in the middle of my life falling apart, like Ashley was fucking crazy, son. And every day I was really quite chill. I mean, I went crazy sometimes, just in like, not like the way she did, but she'd like throw dishes, food, break shit. Every morning I would literally wake up, my house would be destroyed. Like she lived with me in my apartment, and I just wake up and I'd look around, I'd be like, what the fuck happened here? And I just laugh to myself and say, you know what? This is remarkably fucked up, but it really has nothing to do with you, with who you are, and with how you should need to feel about yourself. Just separate yourself. It is just what it is. And it's the same thing to do with the life that was falling apart that I had to walk away from. The person that built that wasn't you. And if it wasn't you anyway, because it didn't know what you know now. And to continue doing foolish things just because you were dumb once makes you a retard. I mean, so like the growth, the part of I had to train my brain, and it worked exceptionally well. After about 20 days, 25 days of constantly, whenever a feeling of anxiety or depression or worry or fucking whatever would start to creep in, I'd just say, I'm 100% fine. No matter what the fuck this feeling's trying to say, has nothing to do with the truth. And then I found that the feelings jumped in and started taking over when the thoughts would turn downward. And a good feeling would come with a bad thought, and the bad thought would go away. And it's just balance. It's balance, and that's where. All right, so I have, by doing this, by embracing and making love with more or less the two parts of myself, the positive and the negative, the devil and the divine. Both are divine, really. I've relieved both of their fear, right? The fear of them both, that is that there's no place for one with the other. That's why they're always fighting. But when you show them how they can work together and produce an experience both will enjoy, and actually more so by having the other, it changes everything. They don't have a reason to fight. Everybody's running around with a fear of one polarity or the other. Here I'm sitting with the love of both. I don't lose because I have the love of the divine and the love of the devil. They both love the shit out of me. I love the shit out of them. Everybody else is just afraid of them. And in the meantime, being dominated, because God and the devil are not really afraid of the humans. They're not really afraid of them. But they just dominate them. That's why the ones at the top today dominate the rest of the humans, because it's They're afraid that in a harmonious world, there's no room for them. But it's why we have to make a place at the table for all the parts of ourselves, all of them. You can't exclude one and hope to feel completed.
I guess we should record one long session in Chiapas, in Palenque or something, because I gotta go. Yeah. I know that Patricia is already waiting, and yeah, let's do it like that.
It's been a great time. I really appreciate your interest, man. And it's people like you with open minds and just like an expansive intelligence and willingness and desire to grasp this thing called life on planet Earth that give humanity a hope for the future, man. So keep it up.